What if we say there is a country in Africa more developed and prosperous than most European countries? It's a country that spent $1 billion, like peanuts, just to arrange the African Cup of Nations tournament. With modern infrastructure, skyscrapers, the widest roads, smart cities, and a booming economy, Ivory Coast offers the best quality of life to its citizens. So much is the attraction that most Europeans come and settle in Ivory Coast to witness how a welfare state looks. But interestingly, just a few years back, the Ivory Coast was in a civil war and struggling to avoid collapse, both economically and as a state. So how did it transform into a model and functioning state even European countries learn from? In this video, let's find out. Number 1. Historical foundations. Ivory Coast's journey to becoming a model state is rooted in its colonial history, where early economic systems and infrastructure laid the groundwork for future success. While colonialism left many African nations impoverished and unstable, Ivory Coast leveraged its colonial legacy and strategic planning during and after independence to build a thriving and resilient state. During French colonial rule from 1893 to 1960, the Ivory Coast was a key part of French West Africa, serving as an agricultural hub. The colonial administration capitalized on the region's fertile lands to cultivate cocoa, coffee, and timber, which were primarily exported to Europe. Although these activities prioritized French interests, they also left Ivory Coast with a foundation for development. Infrastructure built for resource extraction became instrumental for the country's internal connectivity. Railways and roads linked rural farming areas to Abidjan's ports, streamlining the movement of goods. Cities like Abidjan and Bouaké emerged as administrative and commercial hubs, creating a framework for governance and urban commerce that continued to evolve post-independence. Under the leadership of Félix Houphouët-Boigny, the Ivory Coast achieved independence in 1960. However, instead of breaking all connections, Houphouët-Boigny preserved economic partnerships, benefiting from French expertise and investments. He knew who he was engaging with. He knew France was the exploiter, but he also knew that reserved collaboration until the country rises on its feet is the necessity of the time. This approach stabilized the Ivory Coast during its early years of independence and allowed for a smoother transition. Administrative systems modeled after French governance were retained, ensuring continuity in public services and economic management. This strategic choice positioned Ivory Coast as a stable and reliable partner on the global stage while enabling the country to capitalize on its agricultural wealth. By the time of independence, Ivory Coast had established itself as a global agricultural powerhouse. Its dominance in cocoa production remains unmatched, contributing over 40% of the global supply and providing employment for millions of Ivorians. Similarly, the country became the third largest coffee producer and a significant exporter of rubber, strengthening its economic base. Unlike many African nations reliant on subsistence farming, Ivory Coast focused on export-oriented agriculture. The government supported this approach by investing in rural development, offering subsidies, and modernizing farming techniques. This strategy ensured a stable flow of foreign exchange, funding infrastructure projects, and creating an inclusive economic system. These agricultural successes laid the groundwork for the country's transformation into a prosperous state. Number 2. Political stability and governance. The foundation of Ivory Coast's success lies in its political stability, achieved through visionary leadership and pragmatic governance. Over decades, the country has prioritized economic growth, reconciliation, and modernization, establishing itself as a model of progress in Africa. Félix Houphouët-Boigny, Ivory Coast's first president, played a key role in shaping the nation's trajectory during his tenure from 1960 to 1993. His policies, often called the Ivorian Miracle, combined strategic economic planning with an emphasis on inclusivity and stability. Houphouët-Boigny prioritized export-driven growth, with cocoa and coffee at the heart of his economic strategy. This focus resulted in consistent GDP growth rates of 7 to 10%, placing Ivory Coast among the wealthiest African nations during his presidency. Urban development was another cornerstone of his leadership. He transformed Abidjan into a cosmopolitan hub nicknamed the Paris of Africa, complete with modern skyscrapers, a bustling international port, and advanced infrastructure. Rural development was equally significant. Investments in healthcare, education, and transportation ensured that agricultural wealth benefited the entire population, reducing urban-rural disparities. Houphouët-Boigny's ability to maintain close ties with France provided steady foreign investment and security support, while his inclusive governance style minimized ethnic tensions and promoted national unity. By the time of his departure, Ivory Coast had become a leader in stability and prosperity in a volatile region. Number 3. Civil War and Second Miracle. Ivory Coast's journey to becoming a model state was tested by its 2 civil wars. First from 2002 to 2007, and again from 2010 to 2011, that severely tested its stability. These civil wars left a deep scar on Ivory Coast's infrastructure, economy, and social fabric. Economically, the country, once considered an African powerhouse, saw its GDP plunge as investors fled in the face of political instability. Cocoa production, the backbone of the economy, was significantly disrupted, particularly in the rebel-controlled northern regions. The tourism sector collapsed, and the trade-dependent economy suffered as closed borders and reduced exports stifled economic activity. Infrastructure also took a heavy toll. Roads, bridges, and public utilities were destroyed, isolating communities and halting essential services. Schools and hospitals in conflict zones were abandoned or converted into makeshift military facilities, leaving many Ivorians without access to education and healthcare. Socially, the wars deepened divisions between the North, predominantly Muslim, and the South, largely Christian and animist. Ethnic and political tensions flared, displacing over 1 million people and creating long-term challenges for national cohesion. However, despite the devastation, Ivory Coast rose again. Politically, the government pursued inclusive governance by appointing representatives from diverse ethnic and political backgrounds. Truth and reconciliation commissions were established to address grievances, promote dialogue, and promote national healing. These efforts were complemented by community-based peace-building initiatives, which encouraged interethnic collaboration and dialogue at the grassroots level. Religious leaders also played a crucial role in spreading messages of peace and tolerance. Social reintegration programs targeted former combatants, offering vocational training and employment opportunities through disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration programs. Land reforms were introduced to address disputes that had fueled the conflict, particularly in rural areas where access to land was a contentious issue. Under the leadership of President Alassane Ouattara, Ivory Coast took bold steps to transform its economy and rebuild its infrastructure. The government implemented structural reforms, including streamlining taxation, improving financial management, and cracking down on corruption to restore investor confidence. Partnerships with international financial institutions such as the International Monetary Fund and World Bank provided critical funding for development projects. Infrastructure rebuilding was a priority. Roads and bridges were reconstructed to restore connectivity, while public facilities like schools and hospitals were repaired to improve access to essential services. Major projects, such as the renovation of the Port of Abidjan, supported trade capacity and improved logistics. Number 4. Economic strength and diversification. Ivory Coast's economic strength is deeply rooted in its agricultural dominance, but its rise as a model state stems from its strategic efforts to diversify into energy, manufacturing, and technology. This balance between tradition and innovation has transformed the country into a leader in African development. Cocoa production remains a cornerstone of Ivory Coast's economy, cementing its position as the largest cocoa producer globally, contributing over 40% of the world's supply. The government supports farmers with subsidies, training programs, and improved access to global markets, ensuring the industry remains robust. To move up the value chain, the government has invested in local cocoa processing facilities, enabling the production of chocolate and cocoa butter for export. Policies incentivizing foreign companies to establish processing plants within the Ivory Coast have created jobs and increased domestic revenue retention. Furthermore, to reduce reliance on cocoa, Ivory Coast has successfully expanded its agricultural exports. The country has become the world's largest producer of cashew nuts, with a growing local processing industry that boosts export value. Rubber plantations have also flourished, establishing Ivory Coast as a leading exporter in West Africa. Modernized palm oil production contributes to both export revenue and domestic energy needs. Even Ivory Coast also exports energy, making it a regional power hub. Surplus electricity is exported to neighboring countries like Ghana, Burkina Faso, and Liberia, while investments in renewable energy, such as hydroelectric and solar projects, ensure sustainability and energy independence. Furthermore, industrialization has been pivotal in Ivory Coast's economic transformation. Free trade zones, such as the one in Grand Bassam, attract foreign investment by offering tax incentives, streamlined customs processes, and world-class infrastructure. These zones have spurred the growth of manufacturing industries, producing textiles, pharmaceuticals, and consumer goods, creating thousands of jobs and reducing reliance on imports. The petrochemical industry has also emerged as a lucrative sector, with refining and exporting petroleum products contributing significantly to the economy. Even Ivory Coast is positioning itself as a technological hub in Africa, driven by a youthful and innovative population. The fintech sector is revolutionizing financial services by providing mobile money solutions, increasing financial inclusion for the unbanked population. E-commerce platforms like Jumia and local equivalents are making online shopping accessible, even in remote areas. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black Africa. Let's continue now. Number 5. Modern infrastructure. Modern infrastructure has been a cornerstone of Ivory Coast's development, driving the integration of rural and urban areas, facilitating trade, and firming the country's role as a regional economic hub. Ivory Coast boasts one of the best-connected road networks in Africa, with over 85% of the country accessible by paved roads. Key highways, such as the Abidjan-Yamoussoukro Expressway, have revolutionized transportation by reducing travel times and streamlining the movement of goods and people. This comprehensive network has been instrumental in boosting agricultural exports, as roads connecting farming regions to urban centers allow farmers to access larger markets more efficiently. Programs like the National Rural Roads Program have focused on improving connectivity in underserved areas, ensuring that rural communities are not left behind in the country's growth. Additionally, cross-border highways linking Ivory Coast to neighboring countries like Burkina Faso, Mali, and Ghana have strengthened its position as a regional trade hub. The infrastructure also includes the port of Abidjan, a critical gateway for trade in West Africa. As the largest and most advanced port in the region, it handles over 80% of Ivory Coast's trade and supports landlocked nations such as Mali and Burkina Faso. Recent upgrades, including the addition of a second container terminal, have increased capacity to accommodate larger vessels and rising trade volumes. The port is equipped with specialized facilities for handling oil, gas, and bulk commodities, ensuring efficient operations and attracting global shipping lines. By reducing logistics costs and improving competitiveness in global markets, the modernization of the port of Abidjan has significantly boosted the country's economic prospects. Furthermore, Ivory Coast has an extensive railway network, which links Abidjan to Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso and has been revitalized to enhance both cargo and passenger transport. Modern locomotives and upgraded rail tracks have improved efficiency and expanded services, strengthening trade routes across the region. Number 6. Urban development and modern cities. Ivory Coast's urban development reflects a blend of African heritage and modern innovation, turning its cities into thriving centers of progress and opportunity. Abidjan, often called the Manhattan of Africa, is the country's economic heartbeat. Its Plateau district features iconic skyscrapers like La Pyramide and FHB Tower, hosting multinational corporations, banks, and government offices. This financial hub underscores Abidjan's role as a regional powerhouse. The city's luxury amenities cater to a cosmopolitan audience, with high-end hotels, world-class shopping malls, and gourmet restaurants contributing to its vibrant lifestyle. Cultural landmarks like the National Museum of Ivory Coast and a lively nightlife scene make Abidjan a hub for both business and leisure. Projects like the Metro d'Abidjan and the Fourth Bridge are enhancing connectivity and transforming the city into a model of urban planning. Yamoussoukro, Ivory Coast's administrative capital, is home to the magnificent Basilica of Our Lady of Peace, an architectural masterpiece modeled after St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican. This iconic structure attracts tourists and pilgrims from around the world, symbolizing the country's cultural pride. The city's wide boulevards, modern government buildings, and tranquil landscapes reflect meticulous urban planning. As a political and administrative center, Yamoussoukro complements Abidjan's economic focus, balancing the country's development priorities. Beyond its major cities, Ivory Coast has invested heavily in developing secondary urban centers like Bouaké, San Pedro, and Korhogo. These cities have benefited from improved infrastructure and public services, reducing disparities between urban and rural areas. San Pedro, home to the country's second-largest port, plays a vital role in cocoa exports and has spurred local economic growth. The government's smart city initiatives emphasize technology integration and green design, making these urban areas more sustainable and livable. Number 7. Quality of life improvements. Ivory Coast's progress is not limited to infrastructure and economic growth. It is also reflected in the improved quality of life for its citizens. The government has prioritized modernizing healthcare, with facilities like the Hôpital Mère Enfant de Bangerville providing state-of-the-art medical services. Public health campaigns have successfully reduced malaria rates, improved maternal and child health, and expanded vaccination programs. Universal health insurance ensures that basic healthcare services are accessible to all citizens, regardless of income, further enhancing the population's well-being. Furthermore, free and compulsory primary education has significantly boosted enrollment rates, especially among girls, narrowing gender disparities in schooling. Investments in secondary schools and universities, such as Université Félix Houphouët-Boigny, have expanded access to higher education and technical training. Rising literacy rates are equipping a new generation with the skills needed to thrive in a modern economy. Ivory Coast is rapidly digitizing, with nationwide fiber optic networks providing fast and reliable internet access, even in remote areas. Affordable smartphones and widespread mobile coverage have empowered citizens through digital banking, e-commerce, and government services. Initiatives like tech hubs and coding academies are nurturing innovation and entrepreneurship among the youth, positioning the country as a leader in Africa's tech scene. Rapid economic growth and job creation have fueled the rise of the middle class, with more families enjoying access to cars, modern housing, and consumer goods. Improved access to clean water, electricity, and sanitation has significantly enhanced living standards. Meanwhile, cultural festivals and a growing entertainment industry foster national pride and enrich the country's social fabric. Number 8. Mega projects and ambitious goals. Ivory Coast's modernization is driven by bold mega projects designed to transform urban living, strengthen economic growth, and establish the nation as a regional powerhouse. These initiatives reflect a forward-looking vision, aligned with global development standards to elevate the country's infrastructure and economy. The Fourth Bridge in Abidjan stands as a centerpiece of the country's infrastructure transformation. Spanning the Ivory Lagoon, it connects the bustling district of Yopougon to Plateau, Abidjan's financial hub. Designed to alleviate congestion, This critical project is expected to handle over 200,000 vehicles daily, reducing travel times and improving overall mobility. Beyond easing transportation bottlenecks, the bridge fosters economic opportunities by enhancing access to jobs, schools, and healthcare for residents. It also bolsters Abidjan's position as a logistics hub by streamlining the movement of goods and people. Furthermore, Ivory Coast is embracing smart city concepts to modernize urban centers like Abidjan, Bouaké, and San Pedro. These initiatives incorporate cutting-edge technology into urban planning, emphasizing sustainability and efficiency. Smart grid systems optimize electricity distribution, while digital governance platforms simplify processes such as tax payments and permit applications, reducing bureaucracy. Even the Ivory Coast is expanding airports for tourism and trade. The expansion of Félix Houphouët-Boigny International Airport reflects Ivory Coast's ambition to become a regional aviation hub. Upgrades include modern terminals, extended runways, and state-of-the-art navigation systems to enhance passenger and cargo handling capabilities. Regional airports in Bouaké and San Pedro are also undergoing redevelopment, boosting domestic tourism and trade. Improved cargo facilities streamline the export of key commodities like cocoa and coffee, while better connectivity attracts international visitors eager to experience Ivory Coast's vibrant culture and natural beauty. Would you like to visit the Ivory Coast on your next trip and witness how an African country has achieved so much? What do you think other African countries should learn from Ivory Coast to achieve the same level of success and prosperity? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts on what you love the most about the Ivory Coast and which African country you think is most developed. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring videos on Black Africa, its history, rich arts and culture, and things the world should know about. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.